Welcome, everyone, to Two Intellects Talk About Stuff.
Welcome, Chrissy.
Welcome, Bill. Today's episode, we'll be talking about Westworld, episode 5. It's called Contrepasso, which is a word that comes from Dante's Inferno. In the Inferno, the poet goes down into hell, where he sees the suffering souls suffering in a way that fits whatever sin they committed up above. So Contrepasso loosely means the punishment fits the crime.
Yes, well, we saw a lot of punishments fitting crimes, especially in places like Pariah, the wild land, the Mos Eisley of Westworld. It seems there are a couple, in today's episode, there are a couple main external plots and then the usual underground revelations. The outside plots both involved Lawrence, or El Lasso. In one of them, Logan and William and then Dolores as a hanger-oner go into this Mos Eisley and taste all sorts of iniquity and sin and confederacy and the other kinds of evils known to the world. And courtesy of El Lasso, who's the host. And in the other, Lawrence, the same guy, gets unceremoniously, has his throat slit by Black Hat Man in order to drain his blood to keep Teddy alive. So it's a very different treatment for the same host, and they must have run a pretty quick refresh on him overnight to get him to do both jobs that well. The other thing happening in this are a few little underground revelations. One is a technician who figures out how to make a bird come alive, and then he makes Maeve come alive too. That's at the end, so he's gonna get to talk to her, and she's gonna get to talk to him, a bunny suit guy in real life. There's Arnold, who's talking to Dolores as usual, and trying to make everything private and trying to get her to tell him stuff about Arnold, sort of like she's his scrapbook or something. And
Yes.
There's the case where the woman dissects the droid who tried to kill himself and finds LEDs and talks about smuggling data. And that's the scene I'm going to focus on because I'm very curious what kind of data might one want to smuggle.
That's a great question, and I'm glad you're going to focus on that scene because clearly Elsie's findings are going to play a huge role in subsequent episodes. The scene that I'm really interested in, it's a cluster of scenes, but the moment that I'm really interested in is the moment when Dolores decides she's going to start killing bad guys.
Okay, all right, that's a change of heart. She's killed one bad guy before. But now she gets to like open big range. Anyhow, the scene I wanted to talk about, it isn't much of a scene at all. Elsie steals a few minutes to be able to perform an autopsy on the guy who crushed his own head in, the host, who was otherwise taken away from her department. And so she has to sneak her little autopsy, and she finds a bunch of red LEDs under his arm, which in this story world seem to indicate, she says, he's been hacked in a way that can smuggle data out of the park. I'll leave the tech.
Some laser uplink, satellite uplink in his arm.
So yeah, something like that. But the question is what kind of data? And this, I think, hints at what Westworld is really about, what the Delos Corporation is trying to do. Because I'm seeing parallels to the internet everywhere.
Yep.
The internet, you're trying to be amused, but on the internet, they're also gathering data about you. Now, obviously, in Westworld, there's a lot more amusement and there's a lot more money. 40 grand a day, and you get to interact and shoot up a whole bunch of lifelike androids. A lot more interesting than clicking on links. But the androids, the hosts, and the park are also observing. We see it in the control room. We know the androids themselves have sensors, and those sensors are obviously incredibly high bandwidth. They're catching everything about a host's mood. Maybe they even know his blood sugar, but they certainly know their micro-expressions, their tells, which way they look when they get stressed, how long they can go at fighting, how aggressive. Everything about a guest in a stressful situation is being recorded, and I will say monetized. I'm thinking that the data that this host was trying to uplink out of the park is the very gold data about the behavior of these guests. And they're not just any guests. These guests are the richest and most powerful people in the world. It's kind of like having a bioscan on the President of the United States or something, and very valuable information to have so much behavioral data, unconscious behavioral data, on powerful people.
I agree, and I think that is why it's important to keep in mind that this place costs $40,000 a day. Sure, it's in the future, but I think $40,000 a day is still meant to be a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think this is the reason Westworld was built. I don't think this is just a rogue host. I think somebody is, or perhaps some rogue, is trying to steal the data that Westworld was built to collect. I don't think their real monetization scheme is the 40,000 a day. I think it's selling data on the guests.
I like that idea. There's a rogue, or is it a double agent? Somebody who pretends to be with the explicit program, but is actually working for the board and whatever agenda the board has. It doesn't tell anyone else. I guess we'll find out.
Okay, I hope so. All right. Thanks a lot for coming. Oh, hold it. No, you still have your thing to go.
Yes. So, yeah, we'll find out what that data is about. But I wanted to talk about Dolores. And so, the other theme here, one of the themes that the show sort of trumpets from the very beginning is that we've got an emerging consciousness. We are looking at sentience, and we're wondering, how do you treat a being that has sentience? And so that's part of the discussion between and arguments between Logan and William. What is going on with Dolores? Logan thinks that William is being sentimental when he responds to Dolores's emerging consciousness, when in fact we, the audience, know he's responding to something that's actually happening to Dolores. And so
basically, Logan is missing the boat here. William is picking up on Dolores better than Logan is.
Exactly. And Logan is kind of painting by numbers, and in some ways he is another Contrepasso. I think I said this earlier, but, just sort of dispatched of in the way that he would have dispatched any inconvenient host. So it's quite nice, that moment. But after he gets dragged away and William and Dolores think that they are kind of home free, all of a sudden the bad guys close in.
The Confederates who put brown people in their place.
And just at the all is lost moment, Dolores pulls out her gun, kills a bunch of bad guys really fast. And so it's not just that she kills them, it's that she kills them very quickly, very competently.
Okay.
And so I would like to emphasize that. So the question, how did you do that, is not just how did she kill someone? Because if we remember, when Teddy tries to teach her to use the gun, she's unable to pull a trigger. It's not in her programming. Her programming's been changed, but it's not just been changed to allow her to pull a trigger. Somehow she's very competent with this gun. And her answer to the question, how did you do that, is, I imagined a story where I'm no longer a damsel. She imagines herself into an entirely new identity, an entirely new plot.
Well, she's also taking the initiative in her own program. It's no longer the talk about, is she programmed to pull the trigger or not, because there was a moment a couple episodes ago where she just used willpower to decide to pull it. So it's now she is much more the author of her own identity, and she'd be doing fine if Delos weren't wiping her memory every couple days.
Yes. So Dolores is definitely becoming an agent. And we saw earlier that when Ford asked her a direct question, asked her, has Arnold been talking to you? And she lies. She says no. And we had just seen in an earlier scene, Arnold was talking to her. Somebody was talking to her.
The voice in her head, or when she talks back, right?
Exactly. And so she's talking to a voice in her head. Maybe she doesn't know that it's Arnold, although...
she knew Arnold. She was with him his last day.
Exactly.
So she must know who he is.
So yes, I was going to say that seems to me unlikely that she wouldn't know who he is. But what Dolores is up to, whatever plot Arnold has roped her into, is the one that I'm curious to watch. And I want to know if Dolores is actually an agent, or if she's just pulling away from the plot lines that Ford has written for her and entering into the plot lines that Arnold has written for her.
Dolores an agent of yet another power we don't know, or is she actually autonomous?
Exactly. And it's the same question that I have for Maeve when she asks Felix, when she tells Felix, we need to talk. Is Maeve about to initiate a plot between her and Felix that she herself has dreamt up? Or is this just another one of her programs? And now Felix is being roped into the world of the hosts, without his consent, really.
Well, I certainly hope they stick with the sentience and autonomy thread, because there are a million plot lines out in the entire filmic universe of people who are pawns of other organizations. And as long as you're a pawn, you never get to ask what it is to be thoughtful, what it is to have a mind and to make sense of the world and to make your own decisions. That's something Westworld is capable of exploring, and I hope that's the thing they choose to explore.
I hope so too. And I also hope that they continue making Westworld an analog for the internet itself, and for the different things that, helping us to think about the different sorts of things that a company could be interested in aside from merely entertaining us.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll see what kind of data they're talking about.
Yes, we will.
All right.
All right. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.